the crack in the one. The Shema is the floor of the whole house. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah our God, Yahuwah is one. Nobody in this book is trying to lift that floor, but the same scripture that lays it keeps doing something odd on top of it. God says, let us make man. Fire falls when Yahuwah reigned from Yahuwah. A psalm records, Yahuwah said to my Lord, sit at my right hand. And a son speaks to a father as to someone genuinely there. So the question this battle asks is narrow and sharp. Not are there two gods? The answer to that is no, and stays no. But, is the one of the Shema a bare, featureless one, or a one with a real distinction inside it? Say the boundary out loud before the first shot, because it decides everything. This is not a claim of two YHWHs and not a claim of two gods. That is exactly the line the ancient rabbis policed as two powers in heaven, and they were right to police it. The claim on trial is only this, that the one God's own text carries a real distinction, a genuine us, that a flat, featureless oneness has to keep smoothing away. The texts, let us make man in our image, Gen 1:26. The man has become like one of us, Gen 3:22. Let us go down, Gen 11:7. Then Yahuwah rained on Sodom, sulfur and fire from Yahuwah out of heaven, Gen 19:24. Yahuwah says to my Lord, sit at my right hand, Peace 1:10:1. And underneath all of them, a relationship, a son who says, Father, glorify me with the glory I had with you before the world existed, John 17:5. How the room reads it, two readers guard the floor, and both deserve a full hearing. The strict monotheist, the observant Jew, and the Christian Unitarian reads every one of these as a figure of speech that leaves the oneness simple. Us is the royal we, or God addressing his angelic council. Yahuwah from Yahuwah is a Hebrew habit of repeating a name instead of saying from himself. My Lord, Adoni, is the human Messiah King, exalted by God. The Son praying is the man Jesus praying to God. Nothing in God is plural, the language only sounds that way. Hold this at full strength, it is protecting the most important sentence in the Bible. The modalist guards the floor differently. God is one person who appears in different roles, Father, Son, Spirit, like one actor in three costumes. The distinction is real as a sequence of roles, not as anything standing inside God at once. And the modalist owns a verse that says it as plainly as anyone could want. I and the Father are one, John 10:30. One, the modalist reads, because there is finally only one person there to be. Held at its home field, it is a strong word, and it deserves to be heard before it is tested. Now to the texts, one by one, and the honest result is that they do not all weigh the same. The weak gun, named honestly, start with the one that looks most dramatic and turns out to carry the least. Genesis 19:24, Yahuwah reigned, from Yahuwah, can read as two loci of God, the Yahuwah who had just eaten with Abraham, calling down fire from the Yahuwah in heaven. And the early church father Justin Martyr argued exactly that. But Hebrew genuinely does sometimes repeat a name where English would say from himself, and that reading is not a stretch. Taken alone, this verse is a draw, and a draw cannot be a proof. The Memra reading does not lean on it. It sits in the corroborating column with its honest tag, and nothing in this battle rests on it. Mark that. If a text only works when you squint, it does not get to carry weight here. The strong gun, sit at my right hand, Psalm 110:1 is where the chapter actually stands, and it requires a concession to the Unitarian first, because making the concession is what gives the rest its force. The word David uses for the one Yahuwah addresses is Adoni, my Lord, the form used for human superiors, kings and masters. It is not Adonai, the divine title. So plainly, Psalm 110:1 is not Yahuwah said to Yahuwah. It does not by itself give a second divine being, and any book that says it does is overreaching. The Unitarian is right about the word, but look at what is left after the concession, because it is still a great deal. Yahuwah addresses a distinct figure, not a mode of himself, but one he speaks to, and seats him at his own right hand. And David calls that figure my Lord. Yeshua himself drove the knife in, Matt 22:41-45. If David the king calls the Messiah Lord, how is the Messiah merely David's son? There is a figure here who is above David, distinct from Yahuwah, and enthroned beside him. Watch what that does to each reader. It is hardest on the modalist. Sit at my right hand is not a costume change, it is one seating another beside himself. A mode does not enthrone itself at its own right hand, and, push it back to John 17:5, a mode does not say it shared glory with itself, before the world existed. The distinction here is not a sequence of roles, it is standing, and it is eternal. This is modalism's hard ground, and its strains. It does not falsify the Unitarian. He reads the figure as the exalted human Messiah, and on Adoni alone he survives. Honest, but he now owes an account of a Messiah who is David's Lord, seated at God's right hand, of whom Yeshua said the sun reading is too small. That leans past just a man, though whether it lands there is Battle 4's fight, not this one. The Arian has no trouble with a distinct exalted figure, but a creature sharing glory before the world, John 17:5, will strain him later. The Trinitarian and the Memra read it the same way again, a real distinction, one God, us, promoted from a draw to a witness, Genesis 1:26, looks at first like the strict monotheist's easy win, us equals the divine counsel. One feature resists that, let us make man in our image, and the very next verse says man was made in the image of God, singular, double, divine. Man does not bear the angel's image, he bears God's. So whoever the us includes shares God's own image, which a created counsel does not. And the one who is the image of the invisible God is named 2 books later. Col 1:15, that thread runs into the next battle. Add the descent, let us go down beside Yahuwah came down, Gen 11:5, the manifestation pattern of Battle 1, and the picture tightens. Even so, the discipline holds. The counsel reading can stretch. Man imaged after the divine class, so us is not a proof. Its honest job is a convergence witness, one of several independent pointers leaning the same way, alongside Psalm 110 and the eternal dialogue. As a lone gun, it is a draw. In convergence, it pulls real weight. And notice that the oscillation in the text itself, let us, our image, verse 26, snapping to God created his image, verse 27, is the whole question in miniature, plural enough to say us, singular enough to say God created, which is exactly what is on trial. The word echad is set aside on purpose. Yes, it can describe a composite unity, one flesh, one cluster of grapes, but it can also mean a simple one, and a strict monotheist reads it that way without strain. It is compatible with a complex oneness. It does not prove one. Nothing here is built on a word that can be read both ways. Now, look again. Strict Unitarianism keeps the floor simple. Us equals a council. Adoni equals a human lord. The Son equals the man praying. Not falsified. Its strain is cumulative, not local. A Messiah who is David's Lord at God's right hand, an image shared with God, a relationship before the world. Each leans past merely human. None breaks here. The bill comes due in Battle 4. Modalism is the reading this battle stresses hardest. A real us, a figure seated beside God, a glory shared before the world existed. These are not costumes worn in turn. Tension. Arianism grants the distinction easily and pays elsewhere, the eternity and the shared image. The Memra, the one of the Shema, is not bare. It holds the source in his own self-expression, distinguishable enough to say us, to be seated beside, to be addressed from before the world, and one enough that the verb is singular and the image is God's. Not 2 gods, a crack in the one, a distinction inside the oneness. Trinitarianism reads that same distinction as a distinction of persons within the one God. Hear it in the Memra land in the same place, a real distinction, and still one God. Receipt reading reads plainly, must interpret tag. Strict Unitarianism. Echad is simple. Us equals counsel. Adoni equals human lord, a Messiah who is David's Lord at God's right hand, image shared with God, relationship before the world. Plausible. Survives here, strained toward more than human, pressed in Battle 4. Modalism. God in successive roles, a figure seated beside God, glory shared before the world, not a costume in sequence. Tension, this is modalism's hard ground. Arianism, a distinct exalted figure at the right hand, sharing glory and image before creation, a creature, plain on distinction, strained on eternity, Battle 4-5. The Memra, PS 110, a distinct enthroned figure, the eternal Father-Son address, us, singular oscillation, Gen 1924 demoted to corroboration, the figure's divinity deferred to Battle 4, rock solid, a real distinction exists, plausible, strong, it's within the one God, source expression. Trinitarianism, a real personal distinction, Father and Son and Spirit as persons in relationship, reading the us as intradivine persons rather than the angelic council, accounting for why the verb stays singular, rock solid that a real distinction exists, plausible, strong that it is persons, no verdict beneath. One reading walked through battle one almost untouched and meets its hard ground here. Watch the cast keep turning, and note what this battle did not do. It did not prove the distinct figure is God, that it exists is settled, that it is divine is settled later. Battle 4. Keep your tally.